Hey guys, got this really cool import straight from Japan. It actually came pretty fast too. Let's open it and see what it is. Here it is. Alright, box is open right now. And first up we have some Japanese newspaper. I always love when they put things like that in here. Even though I can't read it, but yeah. But at least pretty quickly we get to the main event. It's wrapped in bubble wrap, so I'm gonna unwrap it. Alright, here we have the Panasonic 3DO FZ-10 model. Interestingly enough, this was made by the company called 3DO. Panasonic was just a manufacturer of the hardware, which we'll get into more about that in a bit. Now, the 3DO was a console that came out in late 1993. It was one of the first 32-bit consoles, like one of the first where 3D games were supposed to be a priority. That's why it's called 3DO.
It was made by Trip Hawkins, the founder of EA.
And it was supposed to be a pretty advanced console. Their main goal with it was to make game consoles one streamlined device, similar to how a VCR or later DVD players would be, where different companies would make the hardware, but they would essentially all be able to use the same discs. Whereas, with different game consoles by different companies, they all had their own different cartridges or different CDs that only work on their console, so on and so forth. But the 3DO, with the 3DO, they wanted to do something different and make it all a one-size-fits-all sort of thing. But there were a bunch of issues. First and foremost, we'll get into the price that it was when it originally came out. See, here's the FZ-1 model. It was a bigger model with front-loading disc tray. It originally retailed for $700. Of course, nobody's gonna want to buy a console for that much, and they didn't even have that many games at launch to justify the cost. Why buy a console for $700 that doesn't have many games for it at the start when you could buy consoles that have plenty, like the Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis, for less than $200? And if you think about it, $700 back then is probably well over $1,000 these days. So it's funny though, because in the commercials they showed them putting Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo in a toy box and calling them children's toys, and saying to get a 3DO because it's for the adults and has the more advanced games on it. Which is funny to think about because the game library on it was, for the most part, wasn't very good. There was some good stuff on it that I kind of want to check out, but a lot of it was all pretty bad. a lot of FMV games, which, like, the type of stuff that you would see on the Sega CD, where, you know, the quick time event sort of games, you see video footage that looks like crap, and a button appears on the screen for you to press, or you have to click stuff, like the sorts of games you would see on a computer back then. That was a big thing the 3DO was known for, as it was considered the future, which, you know, I'm glad that it wasn't, because those kind of games, in my opinion, are, for the most part, pretty boring. I like action games, you know. Later on, they eventually made different models by other manufacturers. There was a Gold Star model, which Gold Star is a company that became LG, I believe. And then there was this model, the FZ-10 by Panasonic, which is a smaller, more compact version of the 3DO. And it was a lot cheaper back in the day. And if you go on eBay, they're pretty decent in price. That's why I got this one. It was at a discount, actually. I also like the more compact design of this compared to the original front-loading model. And typically front-loading CD consoles, they always have some sorts of issues. So first we're gonna just take a look at the console itself. See, here's the disc tray. It clicks open. It's kind of like the Neo Geo CD does. And here's the ready and access LEDs. And for whatever reason, the power switch is on the side. Oh, and you might have noticed it only has one controller port, similar to like the TurboGrafx-16 or PC Engine. Because their idea with the controller, which we have right here, and it looks like a Sega Genesis controller, the 3-button one, except that it also has a pause and play button and a stop button and some shoulder buttons. Their idea with the controller was that you just connect another controller to the port on the back, so you don't have to buy a multi-tap or anything like that. Because their idea for the console was to future-proof it, so, you know, you could have more than 2-player games, because, you know, most consoles, of course, back then typically had 2 controller ports. Some had 4. But since they wanted the 3DO to be a one-size-fits-all sort of thing, where they would, I guess, make upgrades down the road, they wanted to be able to have the controllers be attached to one another for more than 4-player experience, which thankfully companies now do wireless controllers. Makes things a lot easier. And then all the other stuff that came in the box, by the way, it's just a AV cable and a power cable. And on the back here we have the AV ports. It's just regular composite, and a power port. And there's also an expansion port. I guess this was for any sorts of add-ons. I'm not sure if the 3DO ever had any sort of add-ons. And there's an S-video port on the back as well for better video quality. And on the side here we got an AV expansion slot. Not sure what this does. This particular version of the FZ-10 that I have is the Japanese version. these are actually far more common over there, the FZ-10s. And the 3DO is region free, so you could just get an English game and put it in. And I think most 3DOs do support burned discs. I'm not exactly sure if this one does, but I kind of hope it does, because it might lead me to check out some other random games that I otherwise wouldn't want to buy, either because they're rare or they're just weird. I did also get a game from another seller, which it actually came before I got the console, and it's Gex, which this was a platformer that originally was on the 3DO, but eventually they put the Gex games on like PlayStation and the PC and other consoles after the 3DO failed, because the 3DO was only around for a few years. Basically faded into obscurity once the PlayStation and Saturn and Nintendo 64, also in the 5th generation of consoles like the 3DO, came out. But yeah, it's just a regular jewel case, at least this version, because originally the 3DO games came in really tall boxes. They're honestly, I don't like the idea of that, because they wouldn't fit on a shelf well. I prefer the jewel case like this. Alright, so now we're gonna just go and plug the console in and make sure it works. Alright, so we're gonna be switching to the TV and the DVD recorder right now. Alright, so I got the 3DO plugged in, and we're gonna be taking a look at Gex, which it's in here. Yeah, right. Controller plugged in. So let's go. Power button. Oh, okay, there it is. Alright, seems to boot up really slow. I don't know if mine's messed up, but here's Gex.
It all started so simply. I had just finished my usual morning routine of nude funkercise, fired up the Barcalounger, grabbed a quick bite to eat, and prepared to watch some serious tube. Little did I know, my snack was sent by Reds.
Options and previews. I wonder what's in previews. Let's see. We'll go to the actual game in a bit. I just want to see what the previews are. 3DO basketball game.
Come on! Come on!
Starts the whole game over again.
Let's get it on.
Seems to be a save file on here, so that means the previous owner of this 3DO must have had Gex before I did, so... Because I got these from separate sellers, as I said in the beginning of the video.
Let's get back to the mystery van.
So here.
Ah, Pope has more color in his cheeks. Nice to slide, boys. Nice touch.
Wait, what did it say? Oh yeah, cool.
Soylent Green is good. That's it. That's the spot. That's what I call getting some tail.
I don't know what that was. The graphics look nicely detailed. Although my only gripe with games that use big sprites is that you tend to not see too much around you. So you end up running into things or falling easily because you just didn't see something ahead. I was having a bit of a difficult time pressing left on the D-pad. I don't know if the D-pad was stuck or what, but it's working now. But...
I'll just go in here.
I almost thought that TV was like a checkpoint or something.
This
there.
one's for Johnny. It's tail time.
Alright, so that was the checkpoint. Oh yeah, I already know about that.
Like the slime boys. Nice touch. Ah, Paul had more color in his cheeks. Let's get back to the mystery man.
Tomato soup. I hate soup. Yeah, the left D-pad button is a bit stiff.
Who opened the can of whooping? It's tail time.
Sure is.
I'm hungry, damn it. That's my look. That's it. That's your spot.
You never knock me down.
Sorry, Mr. Presley.
My big gripe about games that use giant sprites is that it tends to be difficult because, you know, you don't see too much ahead or behind you. Crap.
Slime boys, nice touch. Let's get back to the mystery van.
Well, that's pretty interesting. Crap. Overall, I'm glad the 3DO works. Want to give Gex more of a shot. Seems pretty fun.
Honestly, this was something I mostly wanted to get, just out of curiosity. I've never owned a 3DO before, but I have heard of them in like old gaming magazines when I was younger. I would just see pictures of the 3DO, which I would see the controller and think it was just like the Sega Genesis controller, since it looks almost the same. I just thought it was maybe a more advanced version of that. Of course, being a dumb kid, I didn't know any better. But then I started seeing videos about the 3DO and some of its games on YouTube, and some of them looked laughably bad, but then there was some good stuff on it too. Like, there was Gex, like I showed and I bought, but there was also a really good version of Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which I think that was the only port of that version of the game was on 3DO for a while. And there was a Road Rash game that eventually got ported to the PlayStation and Saturn later on, but it originated on the 3DO. Need for Speed originated on the 3DO. There was a few others I can't think of at the moment. One of the launch titles for the game was a racing game called Crash and Burn, which of course used pre-rendered 3D models to make 2D sprites out of it. Then of course there's a lot of weird FMV stuff on there. I wouldn't be showing any of those on my videos. You know, I don't want to get age restricted or whatever, but yeah, this was mostly a console I wanted to own out of curiosity, and I'm glad to have a version of it. As always, more to come. Thanks for watching and stay tuned. Bye now.